Welcome to Life Beyond Clinical Practice.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Life Beyond Clinical Practice podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Diane, and coming to you today with the penultimate episode of the Courage series. I mentioned last week that we meant to wrap up the Courage series with 2 episodes left, and because of some technical and I don't know, really just a big pause sign for me, I was not able to proceed with the release of these episodes, but coming to you with just as much passion today to hopefully get you over that hump of acknowledging that something needs to change and then battling the questions in your mind that inevitably surface when you want to expand your career beyond your clinical identity. So we'll start off by asking a very simple question. If any of this sounds familiar, these are some of the thoughts, conversations that happen in the heads of health professionals who reach this pivotal point, who've been feeling a sense of career stagnation, know they want to grow, but then face these roadblocks of guilt and all sorts of other things that keep them from making progress. So the first is ask yourself if this sounds familiar. I feel guilty even thinking about leaving my current position. Second common thought is, I have a good job or a good profession. I should be grateful. So this guilt and gratitude trap really keeps high-performing, ambitious clinical professionals from expanding into roles beyond the singular identity they were trained to perform in. Honestly, these are real conversations in your head. They've been conversations in my head and the heads of many others I've spoken to and worked with. When you face that internal tension of outgrowing this old identity, outgrowing your existing role, it can become suffocating because you know you can't stay in the box that you are currently in, but you're also fearful. There's all of these yield signs and cautionary thoughts in your head that say, hey, maybe this is too risky. So this is where a lot of clinicians actually stop. They kind of just try to drown out the noise of those thoughts. And really allowing things like guilt and gratitude to keep you in a place that I also refer to as the good clinician trap, where you're performing, you're respected, you're accomplished, but yet you know that's not enough. So when you reach this point of identity suffocation, you're not just making a career decision anymore. Honestly, you're confronting multiple things, such as loyalty. The loyalty that we expected to live out this career or professional designation to our colleagues, to our societies, to our patients, coupled with responsibility, comfort, familiarity, expectation from those around you, or just society in general. You're trained as a doctor. You're trained as a nurse. You're a really good nurse. Why do you want to do something different now? So those are the things that can really just stall any ideas you may have had for expanding your career, because we worked hard to get there. That's the truth. Being a clinical professional, it's not just in the training, in your internship years, in your residency, if you did a residency, in your actual work day to day. It's high paced, high stakes. And so all that you've invested makes you really put the brakes on deciding, is it worth exploring them more? So when the thought of career change comes up, guilt is the first trap that follows. And it immediately feels like a signal that says, don't do this. But here's the question most people avoid. What if guilt is not a sign that you're doing something wrong or risking everything you built, but actually a sign that you're doing something different, something good? Good for you, good for society. Guilt often shows up when you step outside of what's expected, and especially when you do something for yourself. As clinical professionals, we were trained to serve others. So the moment we start thinking of our own needs, it almost seems selfish. But here's what guilt is actually protecting. Guilt often masks something more honest. That desire for more growth, alignment, expression of who you want to grow into. But that desire conflicts with the narrative we've been taught. That same narrative of being grateful, being responsible, not risking what's good. So instead of exploring that desire for more, you suppress it. And guilt then becomes the mechanism that keeps you in a place that no longer serves you because it limits your capacity to grow and minimize your potential for greater impact in multidimensional ways. So guilt is really what keeps you trapped. But the side we don't always examine is, what does staying actually cost you? Not financially, but personally. And these are some of the costs. They include the ideas you don't explore or suppress, the parts of you that stay underutilized, the energy you lose trying to stay engaged in a role that you've long outgrown, in a role that no longer excites you the way it once did. And when all of these things are allowed to permeate, what's the result? Quiet resentment that builds over time. So to be frank, being good enough in that good clinician trap can be one of the most dangerous places to stay because the consequences are subtle, but they are cumulative. And too many people, sadly, spend years in that place and never explore what's on the other side of their curiosity. So let's now address this issue of loyalty, contrasting that against self-abandonment. And it's an important distinction that you need to make. Loyalty says, I honor what I've built and the people I serve. But self-abandonment, which can be framed as loyalty, says, I ignore what I need in order to maintain that invisible contract to others. One is integrity and the other is simply avoidance. And if you're not careful, you'll label self-abandonment as loyalty because it simply feels more comfortable and acceptable. And so this is where self-trust becomes critical. When it's time to grow, know that you won't get unanimous approval. Perfect timing also doesn't exist, and you probably won't get certainty in the beginning, because certainty will only come after momentum. You have to take steps in the direction of growth to build your confidence and get more clarity. So at some point, it becomes a decision you can't avoid. You have to look yourself in the mirror and ask, do I trust myself enough to explore what's next? And let's be clear, choosing yourself doesn't mean you'll have to abandon everything. It also doesn't mean you'll have full assurance initially, but it does mean that you're making a conscious decision to expand without abandoning your current role overnight. Because it's not about impulsive decisions, it's really just honest ones and taking the journey one step at a time. Now let's get back to this idea of career identity expansion. The framework allows for both respect of what you've built and space for what's next. You don't have to reject your past to evolve to your future, but you do have to stop using guilt as a reason to stay in the same place. So this week, I want you to sit with this and ask yourself, where am I calling my resistance to change loyalty when it's actually fear of trusting myself and choosing what I know is right for me? Because this is where courage becomes real. Not in the big, dramatic decisions, but in the quiet willingness to stop ignoring what you already know. You don't need more motivation or inspiration, but you do need to stop pretending that staying where you are comes at no cost. So if you feel ready to explore a safe next step, I invite you to sign up for my Career Identity Expansion webinar to learn more about how you can build your next chapter without abandoning your identity. The link to join the waitlist will be in the show notes. Until next time, goodbye.